Okay, are y'all seeing my screen, hopefully?
Yep.
All right, cool. All right, so super stoked to introduce the American Sport Fishing Association Sustainability Toolkit to y'all. Created this for the benefit of the sport fishing industry and future generations. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Rick Crawford. I am the president of Emerger Strategies. And before I tell you a little bit more about that, I wanted to explain a little bit about my story and my journey of how I got here. I was born and raised in Savannah, Georgia, and after college, I had an opportunity to move out to Wyoming, and I was introduced to fly fishing and became perhaps unhealthily obsessed with fly fishing. And during that time, when I was discovering fly fishing and spending this time in these beautiful places like Grand Teton National Park, I read Let My People Go Surfing by Patagonia founder Yvon Chouinard. And that book really influenced me because it helped me realize that businesses, or I guess we can use businesses as a tool to solve some of these social and environmental problems that our planet faces. And so I decided I wanted to pursue a career in sustainability and had absolutely zero idea how to do that. So I started installing solar panels when I was living in Jackson Hole, and ultimately, did a lot of volunteer work with conservation organizations, and was actually an aquatic invasive species technician for Wyoming Game and Fish one summer. But I had kind of had this idea of if there was a way that I could marry fly fishing and sustainability, that would sort of be my dream job. So uh, I decided to go back to school and pursue an MBA in sustainable business. And after graduating, as it turns out, you actually do have to pay the loans back. So I had to get a real job. And that brought me back to the low country. I moved back home to Savannah and continued to do a lot of volunteer work with conservation groups like CCA, that you see here. We're building oyster reefs out of recycled oyster shells. But while I was doing that, I was working at a biodiesel manufacturing facility. And then what brought me to Charleston, where I'm currently based, is I went to work for a green building software company. However, after a few years of doing work in sort of the sustainability field, I ultimately decided to try and marry what I'm passionate about, which is fishing and sustainability. And I launched Emerger Strategies in 2016. And our mission is to measure and improve your company's sustainability performance, all while boosting profits. So in short, what that means is we help companies make the business case for sustainability. We're a 1% for the Planet member. We are climate neutral certified, and we're also a climate neutral consultant. And I also hold the Sustainability Excellence Associate credential from the Green Business Certification Institute. So along the way, kind of on my journey of launching Emerger Strategies and getting immersed in fly fishing in the fishing worlds, I started a podcast called The Sustainable Angler. And the purpose of creating that is really just to educate and hopefully inspire anglers to protect the planet. And had the opportunity to measure or to interview a hero of mine, Patagonia founder Yvon Chouinard. I also, a few years ago, in 2020, launched the Fly Fishing Climate Alliance, which is made up of fly fishing guides, shops, lodges, brands, and nonprofits that are committed to net zero emissions by 2050. So where we are today as a company is that, we really provide a broad range of sustainability consulting services for our clients. We do everything from corporate sustainability services, which include completing sustainability assessments, developing strategic sustainability plans, as well as producing annual sustainability reports. We do greenhouse gas emissions management, which basically means we measure your carbon footprint and can help you set science-based targets, submit to CDP, and even achieve climate neutral certification. We also offer waste management services, so we can conduct a waste audit on your operations, help you go zero waste in your operations. We also have some sustainable packaging options available when we work with our clients to help improve their packaging footprint. And then finally, we offer retailer sustainability compliance, and we'll get more into what that means, but basically more and more big box retailers are requiring companies to submit sustainability and climate related information, and we help guide them through that process. All right, enough about me. Let's dig into the toolkit. So worked with the team over at ASA to create this sustainability toolkit. And what I really am frankly unable to do is I can talk at length about sustainability and perhaps to my detriment. But they have really consolidated what the key points and focus are, and have created what I believe is a very useful toolkit that gets down and kind of gets some of the jargon and things that are confusing to most people and strips it down to its basic, that is a very in a very useful format. So let's dive in. So we'll kick things off and talk about some of the principles of sustainability. And so I think it's, when we're talking about sustainability, really what we're talking about is systems thinking. And so, we live on this planet, we live in cities, we operate businesses. Those are all part of a system, and what you do as a business can either have a positive or negative effect on the environment. For example, one of the ways that I like to help describe this is, I live in Charleston, I'm from the Low Country. I love to fish for tail and redfish in the grass. And so the way to describe a system is that just like a fiddler crab is connected to the redfish, which is connected to a vast marsh ecosystem, so are our businesses and our planet. And so that's a good way to think about, your company's impact within this system. But that being said, there are limits to what our planet can handle in terms of boundaries that we shouldn't cross. And so it's one thing if there was a population of, 1 million people, and you could do all sorts of things and it would have little to no effect on the environment. But we're just at a place on the life of the planet with 8 billion people to where, okay, the things that we're doing do matter and they are affecting these systems. And so we need to take that into account as we're sort of balancing our economic, social, and environmental priorities. And so that's just where we are today. But I do want to provide y'all, I included a really quick video clip, which hopefully will work, but there is a framework called the Natural Step, and they do a really good job here of explaining sort of systems and sustainability. And so we'll watch this real quickly, and then we'll keep going here.
Sustainability means that things can keep going, can sustain themselves, can continue into the future, and go on forever. From a human perspective, sustainability for our planet means that it can continue to do what it was designed to do: provide fresh air, clean water, produce food, and allow us all to have a high quality of life forever. Unsustainability means that it cannot, and that is where we are now. 20 years ago, scientists in Sweden developed a definition for sustainability with 4 basic principles. These can be seen as the care instructions for our planet. If we follow them, it is good for our planet. And because we're part of the system that is our planet, it's good for us too. The care instructions are as follows. Reduce our dependence on fossil fuels and heavy metals. Reduce our dependence on synthetic chemicals that persist in nature. Reduce our destruction of nature. Ensure we are not stopping people globally from meeting their needs. Demand for the Earth's services, clean air, water, food, increases as the population increases and living standards rise. But the Earth's ability to provide these services is declining because of the way we're living. In our search for prosperity, growth, and success, we are destroying the system that we as humans are completely dependent upon, nature. We humans have become a threat to our own way of life. The Earth is a system and everything is connected: society, environment, and economy. To live sustainably, we need to follow the 4 care instructions and apply them to everything we do at home and at work. If we can follow these care instructions, we can work together to be sustainable. We will all have a better quality of life. We'll waste less, we'll pollute less, and we'll create more things we value in society, while improving our planet's chances of providing us with the very things we need to survive.
All right, so hopefully that is maybe a clearer way of saying what I was trying to say and talking about systems. So hang on there. Okay. So that being said, folks have been trying to define what is sustainability and what that means. And really the most common definition came in 1987. It was called the Brundtland Commission. It was a report, Our Common Future, and they defined sustainable development as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So that it's helpful in also understanding that, sustainability is a long-term view. It's a long-term strategy, right? And so we can't continue to dump plastic pollution in the ocean indefinitely, right? Eventually that's going to affect the ability of future generations to meet their needs. And so it's really from a business perspective, however, it's really about measuring not only your economic bottom line, but also your environmental and social bottom lines. That was coined by John Elkington in 1994. He's a sustainability pioneer. And it's called the triple bottom line, which is also known as people, planet, profit. So we all are running businesses on this planet. It affects the environment, it affects society, and our business needs to account for that. So why do this, right? I mean, there's lots of reasons businesses do things that make good business sense, but some of the main drivers for adopting sustainability practices, one is risk mitigation. I mean, particularly for companies in the fishing industry. Climate change is just one example, but it's negatively affecting our fisheries, and that's not good. So doing what you can to measure and reduce your carbon footprint is you're doing your part to be part of the solution there. Another main driver is employees. At the end of the day, particularly these younger generations that are coming up, they want to work for companies that align with their values. Similarly, your customers, they want to support brands that align with their values. And we're also seeing, big box retailers I've mentioned earlier, but, Walmart, Target, REI. I haven't verified this, but I even heard Home Depot recently is, if you want to sell products in their stores, you have to submit your carbon footprint through CDP, which is the Carbon Disclosure Project, as well as submit other sustainability related information. And it's also becoming increasingly regulated. This year, the SEC is now it's law if you're publicly traded to measure and report your scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. I won't get into the details of that, but essentially it's everything but your supply chain emissions. Similarly, California is requiring companies over $1 billion to submit their scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. So that's essentially your operations and your entire supply chain emissions. So that's a big driver. And the final big driver is that getting more access to capital. So increasingly, investors are screening companies for what is called environmental, social, and governance (ESG). That's more or less sustainability is what they're talking about, and they want to align their portfolios with companies that are more sustainable. So um, those are some of the main drivers, but from an individual business perspective, and this is what I see in working with our clients, is that there is a very real business case for doing this. For one, it can drive innovation. So as you start looking for materials or packaging that have a smaller environmental footprint, you can actually drive innovation because you're going to find maybe new materials or materials made out of recycled plastic bottles or whatever it is. But it can help drive your company, can help drive innovation within your company. One of the biggest drivers is cost reduction. So you can significantly reduce your operational costs through energy efficiency and renewable energy, and even getting a better handle on your waste, right? You can create new revenue streams too, when you find buyers for your waste potentially. Um, One of the reasons a lot of companies do this also is just to enhance their reputation, right? They know that their employees and their customers want this, and so they want to make sure that they're doing right by them, and as a result, they enhance their reputation. One of the factors also is increasing your brand loyalty. So to provide you with a quick example, one of my clients, Rep Your Water, we started measuring how many customers were buying from them online, like whether it was once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year. And ultimately, when we started telling their sustainability story and they started producing their annual sustainability report, we saw significant increases in their loyalty. And what that means is that the same customer who maybe was going to buy one item from you a year is now maybe going to buy one and gift one to a friend or whatever the case may be. And then they become sort of evangelists for your brand because they're talking about all the cool stuff that you're doing. And then a final reason is, attracting and retaining talent. The How much money does your company spend to attract and retain talent? And you can actually bring high level candidates to you for your environmental practices, and so we see that as another driver for making the business case for sustainability. So let's talk about a couple of case studies. So this is pretty cool. AFCO, they have started measuring some of their sustainability performance, and they were able to measure that they diverted over 61,000 pounds of cardboard and plastics from the landfill. By the way, this is 65% of polyester sportswear styles by AFCO are now made with recycled polyester, I believe, with Reprieve fabric. So that's, by the way, an example of driving innovation. It's also an example of, I believe, a big box retailer may have requested that they start using recycled materials in their products. And then ultimately, as a result of all this, even during the what is being called the Great Resignation, COVID era, AFCO was able to keep their retention rate at 93% from 2021 to 2023, which I think is a testament to them demonstrating to their employees that they are a part of something bigger than just making and selling products that the company cares, and therefore they care and want to are proud to work for that organization. Another case study is one that I have firsthand experience. Z-Man Fishing Products is a client of mine. You can see here in this photo, this is actually the solar array that they have on their roof in South Carolina. And basically, the way that this worked was Z-Man hired me to conduct a sustainability assessment of their business. I, through that, started collecting their energy usage data and cost data and saw that they were spending a pretty big chunk of change on just their purchased electricity alone. So I measured their carbon footprint and recommended that they consider some energy efficiency options as well as solar, which they did. And as a result, they were able to reduce their energy cost $80,000 annually. So they essentially eliminated their power bill. That also created a new revenue stream for them because the power company buys back the excess power that they're sending into the grid. So they created a new revenue stream while simultaneously reducing their carbon footprint. And one of the ways that solar and energy efficiency projects get done and become cost effective is through state and federal tax incentives. So within the toolkit, I provided links to all of these, but just to kind of play with some rough numbers, I think the federal government will take or give you a 30% tax incentive for putting solar on your roof. So, if you own the building that you're in, yeah, I think that you really have to consider solar, particularly if you don't have plans on leaving anytime soon. But there's this DSIRE is great because you can type in your zip code and it'll tell you not only federal incentives, but also what is available to you at a local level through your local utility and state provider, which have some pretty huge variances across the country, but that's a great resource. Through the Inflation Reduction Act, there are lots of energy efficiency, electric vehicle tax credits, and as well through Energy Star, you can, I believe, apply for some energy efficiency improvements and get some tax incentives for that as well. But links to all of those are within the toolkit and would encourage you to dive in and see how you can update some of your equipment and save some money and reduce your carbon footprint simultaneously. So one of the biggest things, my passions are fishing and sustainability, but I'll work with companies, all sorts of companies. And regardless of the industry or, and I give talks within different industry associations and things like that. No matter where I do that, a couple of the most common questions I get is, what do I measure and how do I measure that? I don't know. What should I report on? How do I do these things? And so there's a real interest to want to do it, but there's confusion because there are a lot of different assessments available. There's a lot of different reporting frameworks available. So it is from what as I quote a client, this is speaking Greek to me. I have no idea what they're talking about. So what I did, I created well, I shouldn't say I created. Bob Willard, he's with a company, Sustainability Advantage, and he's written a few books on sustainability and someone that I admire and look up to from a sustainable business perspective. And he created the basic sustainability assessment tool. And what I've done is created a simplified version of that, which is available on my website that you can, it's just the very basics. And what it is it takes what is common amongst all of these different reporting frameworks and puts it into one simplified version. And so to give you an example, it's, energy, waste, water, carbon footprint. Those are just very quick examples that are very basic and easy to understand. There's also the future fit business benchmark, which is the BSAT was modeled after. It's a little bit more advanced for companies that maybe are already down this path and want to see what else they can do. And then benefit corporations, I'm sure y'all have heard of B Corps. They have a B impact assessment that is very thorough, and it is time consuming, but it is, in my opinion, a gold standard in terms of sustainability. So when you're ready to make that type of commitment, that is a good option, but it's not for everyone, and it's also not for companies who maybe are just trying to figure this out. It might be a little too much for them. So that's why I recommend the BSAT, Future Business, then B Corp. As far as reporting, this landscape changes annually. Different reporting organizations and groups are becoming conglomerates, and it's all pretty crazy. But regardless, these are three of the most commonly used reporting frameworks if you're looking to compare yourself to other companies using specific frameworks. The CSRD, the IFRS, and the most commonly, particularly with companies in the US, is GRI, the Global Reporting Initiative. And links and access to all that are obviously within the toolkit. So, I did want to include this. If you're watching this and you're like, okay, how do I access that basic sustainability assessment tool? Just take a moment, click that. That'll take you over to the site, and you can fill that out. And if you click submit, I will then generate a little report and send it over to you with some recommendations so that you can immediately begin improving your sustainability performance. Oh, and I should also mention, which I believe it's going to be on the next, we're going to do a series of these webinars. On the next one, I'm actually going to take everyone through the basic sustainability assessment tool. So we're actually going to go in and complete that assessment together so that you can walk away and have a baseline score and have some concrete steps that you can take. But that being said, you get done with your assessment and you're going, okay, I know a couple things I need to do. What else am I supposed to do? And so I created this, we created this sustainable business guide. And it's really kind of a checklist that you can use to say, have I done these things? Okay, we completed the assessment. Who are our stakeholders? Have we identified them? What's important to them? What are our goals? What goals should we use? Or how should we do that? Have we measured our carbon footprint? Do we know how much waste we're generating? All these things is put together for you in the toolkit so that you can sort of move down this list of action items to ensure that you are making progress on your sustainability journey. So look, and by the way, I didn't put a slide on this, but there's also an additional part of the toolkit that is nothing but additional resources. So it's everything from the EPA's simplified greenhouse gas emissions calculator to a link to, I'll shamelessly plug my podcast, The Sustainable Angler, to all sorts of good information there. And ultimately, the reason that we're doing all this, aside from all these drivers and hey, my retailer's telling me I need to do this or whatever the reason. I mean, at the end of the day, we're doing this to protect what we love. And I would be willing to guess that everyone on this call and everyone in this industry got into this industry because they love fishing. They love everything it brings to them. And, we have an opportunity here to improve as an industry, to really reduce our environmental footprint and make some headway and protect our fisheries and our businesses from different environmental threats. So that's the real reason that we're here doing this. And if any of you have any questions, I know we're going to do a Q&A, but if you have any questions, feel free to scan this. You'll get my contact info, and happy to answer any questions that you might have directly. But I'd also, before I hand it over, just want to take the opportunity to thank the American Sport Fishing Association for this opportunity. I'm really excited. I'm just so thankful and grateful to be able to help move this industry forward. So thanks a lot.
All right, great. Thanks, Rick. I hope everybody appreciated the expertise, the passion that Rick brings to this. Tremendous amount of information, and someone that's been doing this for a while and has successfully helped a fair number of folks, especially in this industry, move through this journey. So, yeah, if folks have questions, again, feel free to do the raise hand function, hit that reactions button at the bottom, or type it into the chat. I guess while folks are maybe preparing some questions, Rick, we'll toss you a softball. So in your experience, what is maybe the biggest obstacle or some of the biggest obstacles? Say a company approaches you and says, hey, I recognize it's 2024. Businesses have to walk the walk and talk the talk. I know I need to do something on sustainability. What do you hear from them, and maybe what do you see as a big obstacle or two just to get started on sort of that path?
Well, I think part of the issue is really just terminology, right? It's ESG, it's sustainability, it's corporate social responsibility, it's all these things. So there's just general confusion of what this is and what it means. And so that's why the first step that I always recommend folks is do an assessment. And these assessments are created in a yes no format intentionally, right? Because it's going, anything that you answered no is something that you should do. And so you're right out the gate, you're going to go, okay, I'm not doing XYZ. I answered no on that. That's obviously something I got to do. And then those types, now you have metrics behind your sustainability. You're not just, okay, we're going to do things that are better for the environment. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. You need to have these KPIs behind it. And so the first step that I'm always recommending for companies is to do that assessment, understand where you are, and where you can improve, and then you can start to map out what that looks like, what's important to you, what's important to your customers, and that may be different for every company, right? Some companies may really want to focus on a particular element that's important to them, and they can do that. And but you don't know what you don't know. So the adage in sustainability is, what gets measured gets managed. And so we want to try and help you understand what you're not doing, and then put some metrics behind that.
Yeah, always helps to have a plan, and I think having sort of objectively upfront some sort of sense of what the universe of options to start looking at makes a ton of sense. I guess so Rick, as I think about this, there's sort of a carrot and a stick of, approaching this issue of sustainability, the carrot being sort of, well, one, you can save money, attract more customers, brand loyalty, keep and retain employees better. Stick maybe being more on sort of the regulatory side. You mentioned some of, retailer requirements, likely, government mandates, if not now, somewhere in the future. So I guess how do you sort of see that balance both now and then maybe if you can kind of predict into the future, how would you use sort of the carrot and stick to convince or entice companies, whether you want to or not, this is something you need to start paying attention to?
Well, I'm not a big advocate of the stick. Not, but that being said, it is coming, right? And so it's a reality on an international level. The European Union, who I know, I'm sure there's ASA members who sell product in Europe. They're more stringent than we are, and they're looking at things like plastic and packaging and what's circular and how are you taking that back. And so you have to know that the regulation is coming. And so in order to get ahead of that, you start to do these things now. But if you do it from a compliance perspective, that's probably not going to attract and retain talent. That's probably not going to help you gain fiercely loyal customers. The way that you do that is by engaging your employees and getting them involved, and really doing things that make a positive impact, from coming from a genuine altruistic place. And so that you can get those results if you're doing it for the right reasons. Um, that being said, it's just a business person, the regulation's coming. So, I mean, it's something that you gotta be thinking about, and you gotta get your house in order, but you can do it in a way that actually helps you get these additional benefits that we talk about.
Yeah, yeah, we have a comment from Lucas Bissett along those lines. The stick is also the consumer. Next generations are demanding this from the companies they're willing to support. So we do have a
I agree.
question in the chat, and then John, I'll get to you from Chelsea with AFCO. She wrote, one of the biggest challenges we have found in eliminating single-use plastics from our supply chain is to design sustainable packaging for fishing lures. Do you have any insight on a way to eliminate plastic from lure packaging without losing visibility to the consumer?
I do. As a matter of fact, I have several prototypes I'd be happy to share with you, but one of my partners is Atlantic Packaging, and a New Earth project. And I will send you over all the prototype images and packaging, but basically, they now have a system that eliminates blister packaging. It's paper, so it's 100% biodegradable. You still get the image of the lure that everyone wants, but you get rid of the single-use plastic packaging. So, Chelsea, I'll shoot you over some info.
Great. And yeah, Rick, I'll make sure to connect you all after this if you don't have our contact info. John with Viking Yachts, feel free to unmute and ask your question.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Mike. And thanks for the presentation, Rick. Just had a question in regards to like manufacturing. And so, we build boats here. You mentioned Z-Man, they're building, producing soft baits. I'm just curious, like in your perspective, how you normalize measuring, like is unit output an appropriate measure, or are there other ways that you can figure out how you're measuring relative to what your production output is from a manufacturing standpoint? Does that make sense what I'm trying to ask?
I think so. I mean, I think the like the way that a lot of people, so for example, with greenhouse gas emissions, right, a carbon footprint, one way to look at that is from an intensity standpoint. So what is our footprint compared to economic output? Which helps to, if you're having a difficult time with your supply chain emissions, which 99.99% of companies do. It's one way, I should say, to get a handle on what that is. So that's kind of like at a company scale, right? Is saying what's our carbon footprint, and what's our greenhouse gas intensity, using an economic model. Another way, if I'm and let me know if this is not answering your question, but the way I'm something to consider, is what's called a life cycle assessment, which we didn't we mention at the end of this report, but this is kind of designed to, hey, let's get started on this journey. But a life cycle assessment really dives much deeper into the environmental impact of an actual product. So, in y'all's case, it's a boat, right? And so, to my knowledge, there has not been an LCA on a boat, or a yacht of any sort. Could be a cool opportunity, but that's aside. But there are ways to measure it, but the sort of common framework is to measure it as a carbon footprint of the business. Now, how does Viking Yachts compare to another manufacturer of yachts? There enough data doesn't exist today to have a meaningful benchmark to see if you're above average or below average. Is that helpful, or did I just make that?
Yeah, no, I think it was. I guess what I was wondering is like, how, if we were to measure our utilities, for example, we say we do 150 to 175 units per year, whereas a Z-Man may do 1 million units a year. I understand a carbon footprint just based on manufacturing square footage and things like that, but I'm just trying to think about it in terms of output and how you can be, measuring that relative to the output of the facility, not, and I'm just trying to figure out what that metric is. Is it units? Is it weight? Is it something else? I'm not exactly sure. That's why I was just struggling with. But yeah, maybe we can touch base offline. I'd love to get your thoughts on how we would go about doing something like that.
Yeah. Well, and that might be helpful, so I can just put a little bit more thought into it. But yeah, that'd be great.
Thanks.
All right, anyone else have any more questions? I don't see any more in the chat or any hands up. Going once, going twice. Okay, well, we're about 45 minutes in, so I feel like we've covered a lot of ground here. Had some good discussion here at the end. So I guess we'll close it out there. Rick, thanks a ton for this. For folks that are wanting more, of course, there's always the opportunity to reach out to Rick directly. And we'll also be holding, this is the first of, I think, 4 webinars. We'll also do a lunch and learn at ICAST for folks that want to talk more to Rick. You'll have the opportunity there to hear him in person and talk in person. So more to come on this. As I mentioned earlier, this is just the start for us in ASA, as well as hopefully a lot of our members moving more into this really important field. So Rick, do you have any parting thoughts before we close out?
No, I'd just say, thanks everyone for attending. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Take the basic sustainability assessment and see where you are. I know we'll be doing that one live on the next webinar, but if you want to go ahead and dive in and get a sense for some things, it takes about 5 minutes. So pretty simple.
Yep. All right. Well, we'll do the next webinar in a month. I know we picked a time. I think it's roughly 1 month from now, but we'll be sure to send plenty of emails out ahead of time so folks can register. So thanks, everyone. We'll close out there. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Rick's info is on our website. You can also go to emergerstrategies.com. And Rob Shane is typing in. The next webinar is on June 25th at 1 p.m. Eastern. So mark your calendars. All right, we'll close out there. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and look forward to seeing most, if not all of you, at ICAST coming up here before we know it. So thanks, everyone. Take care.